So we're continuing our reading of Change of Heart, a compilation between Chagdud Rinpoche and Lama Shempen. Lama Shempen, who's a wonderful Lama in the United States, has a center called Iron Knot Ranch in New Mexico. If none of you have had the chance to meet her, it'd be a wonderful opportunity to go meet Lama Shempen. Our Chagdud Gonpa Lamas are getting old. So Lama Norbu, for example, is having some health issues. Please keep him in your prayers. Luckily, Kadro is strong and firm, but also she's getting older, and Nyingma Rinpoche is getting older. I'm getting older. So impermanence takes its toll. Sometimes people are shocked when the Lamas get older, or have health problems, or pass away. But there's nothing that says that the Lamas are immune from old age, sickness, and death. And nothing that says if we do our practice that we're immune from old age, sickness, and death. What the practice does promise is that we'll be more prepared for those eventualities. When sickness comes, when old age comes, when death comes. Just as an example of that, last weekend, a week from today, I called Lama Norbu to see how he was doing. And he was in the hospital. And he said, I'll be honest with you. He said, I'm not great. And my prognosis is not great. Not that he's in risk of dying that I'm aware of, but recovering his previous physical health, according to the doctors, is going to be quite difficult. But spiritually, he was wonderful. He was the same Lama Norbu, happy, serene, laughing, in peace. So that's an example of the realization of the practice that comes, is that even when we're facing old age and sickness and death, we maintain our serenity, our peace, and our spiritual well-being. So we're in chapter 3, the chapter on equanimity. Rinpoche says, our challenge is to let go of our judgments and biases, including the distinctions we make between victim and aggressor. If tragedy befalls a relative or even a stranger, most of us are moved to compassion. But we tend to rejoice when an enemy suffers. We think he deserves it because he has hurt us or others in some way. This attitude not only fails to aid anyone, but also creates non-virtue. When we hurt someone with our words or actions, or just wish them harm, we actually harm ourselves. The karmic repercussion of hitting someone, for example, is much worse than the pain of being hit. The mind is like a fertile field in which a single karmic seed can produce many fruits, such as a single apple seed can grow into a tree bearing hundreds of apples year after year. If an aggressor who has acted out of ignorance and confusion does not purify the karma he or she has made, his pain in the future will be much greater than that of their victim. It's as if the victim is now experiencing the consequences of having swallowed poison in the past, even as the aggressor themselves is drinking a far deadlier dose. We need to find a way to help them both. A Vietnam veteran and meditator related an incident at one of the first Bodhisattva trainings. Fortunately, he had not been involved in any of the atrocities of the war, but a member of his unit in the Marines had not been so lucky. He and another man had thrown poison cookies to children running after their tank. The men thought that soon after they would be leaving the area, but instead they received orders to stay. That way they were forced to witness the results of their actions as the children writhed in agony. Their mothers ran from their huts and, holding their children in their arms, begged for help. They couldn't understand what had happened. The soldier later confessed, "Since then, I haven't been able to sit in a room with a child. I can't look into a woman's eyes. I can't sleep at night. I live with these images day after day." His story is a poignant example of how everybody loses in violent conflict. I saw this clearly in Tibet during the communist Chinese invasion. Most of the soldiers who came to occupy Tibet didn't want to be there, but they had no choice, having been sent there by their superiors. Many Chinese as well as Tibetans lost their lives during that time. The Chinese soldiers had become very hardened. They swarmed into Tibet like ants. The Tibetan people had no chance. They prayed that the blessings of their meditation practice would support them, and they wore protection cords to prevent bullets from penetrating their bodies. I couldn't blame the soldiers who came to Tibet. The teachings on equanimity and compassion that I had received, contemplated, and meditated on helped me to feel compassion rather than anger. I thought, Tibet is being destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese and Tibetans have died. What has anyone gained? Everybody has lost. Many people have been killed, many temples destroyed, and only more suffering has come from this. I thought of the leaders who had decided to invade Tibet, those responsible for so much death and destruction. I thought of the karma they had made, and I knew that their suffering would be far greater than anything the Chinese soldiers and Tibetans had experienced. I saw that there was no one to be angry with, that everyone's lives had been or would be damaged. I try personally very hard when I'm watching the news or reading the news about the wars that are occurring in the world. I try very hard to frame it in this way. It's not easy because our natural tendency is to see things in a much more relative, simple point of view, perspective. But in fact, the Buddha, whose eyes are completely open, realizes that everybody's a victim in this kind of a situation. And if we contemplate, the so-called victims are actually purifying karma in a horrible way. But nothing happens without a karmic cause. So they do have the karmic seeds to go through that horrible suffering, to have their homes destroyed, to have their lives taken away. And it's horrible. But the aggressors, in one way, are the real victims. Because, like the teachings say, the law of karma isn't just one time returning. The law of karma is 500 times at least that it comes back on you. So all of these prime ministers, governors, presidents, generals that are making these orders, they're making a karmic debt with thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of people, destroying their homes, destroying their lives, destroying their families, destroying their places of work, destroying their crops, their vehicles. So it's unimaginable the amount of suffering that's going to revisit these people. It's unimaginable. We can't comprehend how much suffering. And because they're harming so many people, in the Buddhist teachings it says oftentimes this karma will already revisit them during this lifetime. This is the law of the world of Jambudvipa in which we live, that the karma here is not so dense and backlogged that it always has to wait for future lifetimes to ripen. Sometimes it will ripen in this lifetime here. And I know that I've seen certain leaders fall and be horribly murdered and killed as a result of their karmic actions. And That's the way of karma, and karma is infallible. And sometimes we don't see the whole picture. And because we don't see the whole picture, our mind can get small and tight and restricted. And it's a training. It's a training for all of us. And probably until we become Buddhas, it'll be an effort to try to see things in this vast, compassionate way. But that's the goal.